Hey guys, so it's been a while since I showed some of my Apple collection, and I thought I would give you guys a little bit of an update. First we're gonna do handhelds, and then we'll get to the computers in a second. First is this iPod mini first generation. It works, however the battery is completely dead. Yep. Here is an iPod 5th generation. It's filthy, I'm sorry, but it does work. It does work, and it actually has some music on here. Hell yeah, I put Pierce the Veil music on here. Here's a 16GB iPhone 3G. Battery is dead, and I do not want to charge it right now. Here is a 32GB iPhone 3GS. I've had this device for almost 10 years now. This used to belong to my grandfather, and he was using it as an MP3 player. After a few years, it just sat in a drawer. Here's an 8GB iPhone 4. This is a CDMA model on iOS 6.1.3. See how there's no SIM card slot? That's how you know it's a CDMA iPhone 4. Here's a 16GB CDMA iPhone 4. It has a mismatched back because I have no idea. This runs iOS 7, and it's also dead. Here's a 32GB iPhone 4S. This is on iOS 6.1.3, and when it's on, it's actually used for playing very vintage iOS games. Here's a 16GB iPhone 5 on iOS 8.4.1. Here's a 32GB iPhone 5 on iOS 10.3.4. This was the first iPhone 5 I got, and it was honestly really special because things still supported iOS 10 when I first got it. Here's an iPhone 5C on iOS 10.3.3. It's blue, and it's also 8GB. Here's a 16GB iPhone 5C. This was supposed to be on iOS 9.3.1. However, the battery is completely damaged and it doesn't actually turn on at all. Here is an 8GB iPhone 5C on iOS 9.2.1. Wow, look, a device that turns on. Look at the green. It looks so nice. Here's a 16GB iPhone 5S. This is on iOS 12. It does work. Here's a 64GB iPhone 6. It runs iOS 12, and it's sometimes a YouTube camera that I use. Hey look, shout out to Moonlight. I put it in this protective case for some reason. I don't know, I thought it would be nice to protect it. It's one of the only collector phones that I have that's actually in a case. Here's a 32GB iPhone 6S. This was given to me by one of my friends, and I haven't really used it in a while and haven't really charged it up, but maybe I will someday. Here's a 32GB iPhone SE first generation. This was my old phone from 2018 to 2019, and I actually used this as a camera for my YouTube videos back in the day. Here's a 32GB iPhone 7. This runs iOS 15. I'm pretty sure that all these devices are dead. Here's a 128GB iPhone 7 Plus. This was actually a really nice addition to my collection because I've never had a Plus model iPhone before, and getting this was super cool. The matte black color just looks so good. Here's a 64GB gold iPhone 8. It's on iOS 16, and it was sometimes one of my cameras. Yes, I switch between iPhones for cameras. It's weird, I know, but it's fun. Here's a 256GB iPhone 8 Plus. It's on iOS 16, and it's actually a backup phone for my main phone, which is an iPhone 14 Pro. You can't really see it, but the phone recording this video is a 64GB iPhone XR on iOS 17. Here's a 64GB iPad first generation on iOS 5. Oh, gotta censor that. It works and it's fully restored, and I'm most likely gonna be selling it. Here's a 16GB iPad 2 on iOS 6.1.3. I downgraded it from iOS 9 because iOS 9 on the A5 devices absolutely suck. I also have a 32GB iPad 2 on iOS 6.1.3. Also downgraded from iOS 9. Here's a 32GB iPad mini first generation that I downgraded to iOS 8.4.1, which is unfortunately the lowest OS that I can get on this device. Officially, that is. And here's a 16GB iPad mini 4 on iOS 15. I used this for a little bit until I realized 16GB absolutely suck on a modern device like this. I mean, just look at that. And here is an iPod Touch 5th generation on iOS 9. The only device I have not downgraded to iOS 8. This was my childhood device, and something that I used to use every day. I mained this device for 5 years. We made it to computers, yeah! First up is this late 2006 MacBook, 2 GHz Intel Core 2 Duo, 4 GB of DDR2 RAM, and running OS X 10.7.5 Lion. I know there's spots on the screen, I really need to clean it. Next is a mid-2010 13-inch MacBook Pro, an unknown clock speed of Core 2 Duo, 6 GB of DDR3 RAM, and it's running a patched version of macOS Catalina. Now for something you probably haven't seen before. This was my main laptop, the early 2011 15-inch MacBook Pro. I think it was a 2 GHz Intel Core i7, 4 GB of DDR3 RAM, and it was running macOS High Sierra before it died. Just look at that ginormous screen. I wish I still could use this. However, it was replaced by this, the early 2015 MacBook Pro. 2.9 GHz Intel Core i5, 8 GB of DDR3 RAM. It's running macOS Monterey. We have my iMac G4 from 2002, and here's a 2010 iMac just sitting in my closet. I don't know, I didn't have anywhere else to put it.